Hi there, it's Matt here, and welcome back to the podcast. We start today's episode on the athletic track. It was the finals of a world-class sprinting event, and an odd detail emerged. Many of the sprinters at the starting line carried a medical approval for the disorder called narcolepsy. That's right, the disorder that makes people suddenly and uncontrollably fall asleep in the daytime. On paper, these fastest humans on Earth were apparently narcoleptic, which was hard to believe. In reality, it was a loophole. They had been prescribed a drug called Modafinil, normally prescribed for patients with narcolepsy as an alertness performance booster. In one high-profile 2003 case, the US champion sprinter, Kelly White, who won 2 gold medals, had them stripped after testing positive for Modafinil. She claimed a doctor had given it to her for a so-called sleep disorder. It turns out she wasn't alone. Officials went on to uncover 6 to 8 similar Modafinil cases among elite athletes around that time. In short, a lot of Olympians had suddenly, quote-unquote, fallen ill with narcolepsy just to get their hands on this alertness pill. The subtext was clear. Modafinil had quietly become the secret weapon to cheat sleep and gain an edge. Let's talk about this supposed all-nighter in a pill, which I know, coming from me, a sleep scientist, sounds rather antithetical to all that I speak about on this show. But it's a drug frequently used in society, and hence I think it's important that I not shy away from discussing the science of Modafinil and any pros and any cons. And there are cons, which we'll come to. But let's take a step back first, because to me, the story of Modafinil is really a story about the market for human performance, the market value of your cognitive economy. And markets, as we know, have a way of discovering what people want before they even know they want it. In this case, what people wanted wasn't just to stay awake. They wanted it to stay awake and be smarter than everyone else who wasn't. This desire for cognitive enhancement represents a fundamental shift in how we view human optimization. Not just physical enhancement through exercise or nutrition, but direct pharmacological modification of our mental capabilities. Modafinil emerged in the late 1990s as an FDA-approved treatment for narcolepsy, but its development traces back to the 1970s in France. What makes this compound remarkable is how it differs from traditional stimulants like amphetamines or methylphenidate. Most stimulants work by flooding the brain with dopamine and norepinephrine, creating that familiar jittery, hyper-alert state, and the inevitable crash. Modafinil, however, operates with more subtlety and selectivity. It doesn't simply turn up the volume on all brain activity. Rather, it appears to fine-tune specific neural circuits involved in wakefulness and attention. Think of traditional stimulants like turning on all the lights in your house when you only need illumination in one room. Modafinil, in contrast, many claim, switches on just the lights you need, preserving energy and reducing unwanted effects elsewhere. And without side effects or consequences when used for non-medically necessary needs. Was that possible? As we'll discover, no, and certainly not chronically. What exactly is this drug that turned Olympic sprinters into faux narcoleptics? Modafinil is what pharmacologists call a wakefulness-promoting agent, essentially an all-nighter in tablet form. It was developed to help people with genuine sleep disorders, narcolepsy, shift work sleep disorder, and sleep apnea. For someone who can't stay awake due to a medical condition, Modafinil can be life-changing. But like any good drug story, the plot quickly thickened when people realized it could do more. The pharmaceutical industry had inadvertently created what would become the gold standard for cognitive enhancement, What's happening in the brain when modafinil takes effect? This is where things get truly fascinating. Unlike the sledgehammer approach of traditional stimulants, modafinil appears to work more like a precision instrument. A 2009 study used positron emission tomography brain scans to demonstrate that modafinil works by blocking approximately 51% of dopamine transporters in the brain's reward centers. This increases dopamine levels in specific brain regions by about 40%, but without triggering the euphoria you'd get from recreational stimulants. Dopamine is just one piece of the puzzle. The 2005 study showed modafinil increases histamine release in the brain's wake-sleep switch, called the hypothalamus, by 150 to 200%, essentially flipping the brain's master alertness switch into the on position. The drug also increased levels of noradrenaline, which is the brain's sister chemical to adrenaline downstairs in the body, by approximately 55%, especially in the higher order executive thinking and reasoning regions of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. Increased noradrenaline also happened in that wake-on switch region of the hypothalamus by over 33%. Modafinil also affects orexin, also called hypocretin, a neuropeptide that regulates arousal and wakefulness. It's like having a master electrician rewire your home's circuitry rather than just flipping all the breaker switches at once. A standard dose, around 200 milligrams, some have claimed, can make a sleep-deprived person feel bright-eyed and focused for hours. A landmark 2004 study at Walter Reed Army Institute of Research showed that modafinil could maintain cognitive performance during 64 consecutive hours of wakefulness. That's nearly 3 full days without sleep. The study found that modafinil maintained performance at 85 to 90% of baseline levels even after 2 nights of total sleep deprivation, whereas placebo groups saw performance plummet to just 30 to 40% of normal. Think about that in practical terms. After just 17 hours of being awake, your driving ability deteriorates to the equivalent of having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.05%, which is considered legally impaired in many countries. After 24 hours without sleep, cognitive capacity typically drops to roughly 50% of baseline. Yet here was a pill that seemed to defy those limits. This extraordinary preservation of function under extreme sleep deprivation conditions seemed almost too good to be true, and in many ways, it was. A long-standing partner of today's podcast is Element, spelled LMNT. Element is a sugar-free electrolyte drink mix, and for me, it was the sugar-free part that made me start using it a while back. And again, I buy my own supply just to stay objective. Beyond having the electrolytes in the right balance, the other reason I'm a fan of Element is that it's scientific. If you look up the people who created the company, you'll find some pretty heavy-hitting physiology, biochemistry, and pharmacology knowledge baked into the product. And again, all of that comes without any sugar. Now, here's the update. Element's lemonade salt flavor, which used to be seasonal, was so popular that it's now permanent. You can get it year-round. Happily, I badgered them, and they have agreed to give you fine folks a free 8-count sample pack with any purchase of Element if you use the link drinklmnt.com/Matt Walker. So for free product with your purchase, just visit drinklmnt.com/Matt Walker. And as I said, you'll get some free product. Additional work examined modafinil's effects on brain connectivity. They found that a single 200 milligram dose increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex by 38% and strengthened functional connectivity between this region and other areas involved in attention and cognitive control by approximately 45%. This enhanced neural network efficiency in the brain's attention and executive cognition regions, which may help explain how modafinil improves higher order thinking. It's like upgrading the traffic control system in a busy city. The same vehicles and roads exist, but improved coordination leads to smoother flow and fewer delays. The military was among the first organizations to see modafinil's potential. The French Foreign Legion reportedly used it during the 1991 Gulf War. The US Air Force approved it as a replacement for dextroamphetamine for long missions by 2004. A 2006 study tested helicopter pilots in flight simulators after 40 hours without sleep. The modafinil group maintained flight performance within 15 to 27% of well-rested levels, while the placebo group's performance deteriorated. It's like the military had discovered a new form of human capital arbitrage, squeezing more performance out of the same human assets by chemically extending their operational hours. NASA also got in on the action, stocking modafinil on the International Space Station to help astronauts adapt to the 16 sunrises and sunsets they experience every 24 hours in orbit. When you're managing a $100 billion space laboratory, you can't afford to have your crew's performance degraded by something as trivial as circadian rhythm disruption. The space agency's endorsement of modafinil represented a significant validation of its potential for extreme performance scenarios. As a sleep scientist, one of my primary concerns with any wakefulness-promoting agent is its impact on recovery sleep. After all, sleep isn't just the absence of wakefulness, it's an active, complex biological process essential for cognitive and physical restoration. Here's where modafinil presents another interesting deviation from traditional stimulants. When you use amphetamines to stay awake, you typically pay for it later with disrupted recovery sleep. The architecture of your sleep, the delicate balance of NREM and REM stages, gets distorted. Several studies have shown that modafinil doesn't significantly alter sleep architecture once recovery sleep begins. You still experience the normal progression through sleep stages, including the crucial slow-wave sleep and REM periods essential for memory consolidation and emotional regulation. This doesn't mean that using modafinil to stay awake is without consequences. The fundamental sleep debt still accumulates and must be repaid. It's like taking out a loan with more reasonable terms. The principal still comes due, but without the predatory interest rates of traditional stimulants. What about modafinil's effects on non-sleep deprived individuals? That's where one of the most comprehensive reviews comes in. A 2015 meta-analysis examined 24 studies investigating modafinil's effects on cognition in healthy rested volunteers. They found that modafinil improved attention by an average of 22.7%, learning by 10.5%, and executive functions by 15.3%. But the benefits weren't universal. Simple psychological tests showed minimal improvement, 3 to 5%, while complex cognitive tasks saw gains of up to 20%. In other words, modafinil helped most with exactly the types of cognitive challenges valued in high-performance professions. Cognitive enhancement isn't just about processing power. It's also about motivation and mood. Here, modafinil presents another interesting angle. A 2013 study found that modafinil increased task enjoyment and motivation in healthy volunteers. Participants reported feeling more pleasure in completing cognitive tasks and greater motivation to continue working. This enhanced motivation might be just as important as the direct cognitive effects. After all, even the most powerful brain is limited by its willingness to engage with challenging problems. If modafinil makes cognitive effort more rewarding, this could create a virtuous cycle of enhanced performance. But we must ask, at what cost might this artificial motivation come? It's like a farmer over-fertilizing crops for immediate yield gains while potentially depleting the soil's long-term fertility. We simply don't know the downstream consequences. One concern often raised about cognitive enhancers is their potential impact on creativity. Does optimizing the brain for focus and efficiency come at the cost of creative thinking? The research here is mixed and fascinating. A 2017 study found that modafinil actually impaired creativity in healthy volunteers on certain divergent thinking tasks. This suggests that the same mechanisms that enhance focused attention might constrain the mind-wandering mode often associated with creative insights. However, other research has shown different results. A 2015 study found that modafinil enhanced certain aspects of creative problem solving, particularly those requiring both divergent and convergent thinking. This suggests that modafinil's effects on creativity might depend on the specific type of creative task. This tension between focus and flexibility reflects a fundamental trade-off in brain function. Our cognitive systems are designed with certain inherent balances, and shifting these balances may enhance some capabilities while diminishing others. It's like tuning a guitar. Tightening one string affects the tension on all others, and the perfect tuning for one piece of music might not be ideal for another. By the mid-2000s, modafinil had spread from military applications to corporate America. Wall Street traders used it to stay sharp during market volatility. Silicon Valley programmers took it to code through the night. Executives praised its ability to eliminate jet lag on international flights. In the race for cognitive capital, modafinil had become the ultimate insider advantage. The drug had evolved from a medical treatment into a competitive tool, reshaping expectations about human performance in high-stakes environments. College campuses weren't far behind. Students discovered that modafinil offered the focus of Adderall without the same intensity or crash. The promise of all-nighter superpowers with fewer side effects was irresistible in a competitive academic environment. It became the pharmaceutical equivalent of a secret study hall that only the privileged few knew about. Let's return to the sports world, where modafinil's story took a public turn. The scandal with sprinter Kelly White in 2003 wasn't just about one athlete. It exposed a pattern. After she tested positive at the World Championships and lost her gold medals, investigations uncovered what looked like systematic abuse. The World Anti-Doping Agency responded by quickly adding modafinil to its prohibited list. Since then, the drug has surfaced in everything from weightlifting to esports to chess tournaments. Another fascinating aspect of modafinil research is the role of individual differences. Not everyone responds to modafinil in the same way, and genetics appears to play a significant role. Research has shown that individuals with certain variants of the COMT gene, which affects dopamine metabolism in the prefrontal cortex, respond differently to modafinil. Those with the VAL variant associated with lower baseline dopamine levels often show greater cognitive enhancement from modafinil than those with the MET variant. Similarly, polymorphisms in the DAT1 gene, which encodes the dopamine transporter that modafinil targets, also influence individual responses. This suggests that the future of cognitive enhancement might involve personalized approaches based on genetic profiles. However, these genetic factors also raise serious concerns about inequalities in access and effect. If some people are natural responders to modafinil while others gain minimal benefit, this creates another dimension of cognitive inequality, potentially determined at birth. It's like some people having naturally superior athletic equipment built into their bodies. The playing field is inherently uneven before the competition even begins. Okay, admission time. I've probably eaten more protein bars in my life than I've blinked, and I'm always on the hunt for the very best. Then I found David Protein Bars. In fact, it was Dr. Peter Attia who clued me in. He was involved in their development. Knowing his standards, I trusted them immediately. Each bar delivers 28 grams of protein, just 150 calories, and 0 sugar. That's the best protein to calorie ratio I've seen, and the taste is legitimately good. Protein isn't just about muscle, it's essential for metabolic health and for keeping you full. And David's unique ratio makes these the most satiating bars out there. Here's the kicker. Demand has been so high that the full lineup of 8 flavors is currently sold out on the website. They'll probably be back in stock by the fall or autumn for us Brits. In the meantime, you can find them on Amazon or use the store locator on their website to grab them nearby. Try them out for yourself at davidprotein.com/mattwalker for a special deal for all you folks. Again, that's davidprotein.com/mattwalker. The Global Drug Survey reported a striking trend. Nearly 30% of US respondents admitted they'd tried a cognitive enhancer in the past year. Modafinil had become the smart drug of choice in high-stakes environments where sleeping is viewed as an inconvenient biological limitation rather than a necessity. But as with any performance shortcut, there's always a price to pay. Despite having a safer profile than amphetamines, modafinil isn't consequence-free. A study published 3 years later reported adverse effects in roughly 16.6% of patients, including headaches, 13%, nausea, 11%, and anxiety, 8%. A small percentage, about 0.8%, experience severe immune reactions like Stevens-Johnson syndrome, a potentially life-threatening skin condition. Modafinil also interacts with several medications, including reducing the effectiveness of hormonal contraceptives by up to 25%, which is a critical consideration for women of reproductive age. Then there's the psychological dependence that can develop when you start viewing your natural, unenhanced self as inadequate. It's like becoming accustomed to seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. Eventually, normal vision seems dull and insufficient by comparison. Most importantly, modafinil doesn't eliminate the need for sleep. It just postpones it. The drug masks tiredness temporarily, but the sleep debt continues to accumulate behind the scenes. A 2012 study showed that while modafinil maintained alertness and basic attention during sleep deprivation, it preserved only about 65 to 70% of complex decision-making abilities and just 40 to 50% of creative thinking capacity. It's like taking out a high-interest loan against your future cognitive capacity. Eventually, that debt must be paid back with interest. As a sleep scientist, I find myself at an interesting crossroads when discussing cognitive enhancement. On one hand, I've dedicated my career to understanding and promoting natural sleep as the foundation of cognitive and physical health. On the other hand, I recognize the complex realities of modern life and the legitimate needs that drive people to seek cognitive enhancement. The use of modafinil for cognitive enhancement raises several ethical questions. First, there's the question of fairness and access. If modafinil does enhance cognitive performance, does its use create an uneven playing field? Should it be available to everyone, or does restricted access exacerbate existing inequalities? Second, there's the question of authenticity. Does pharmacological enhancement undermine the value we place on effort and natural ability? Or is it simply another tool like education or technology that humans use to transcend their biological limitations? Third, there's the question of identity. How does cognitive enhancement affect our sense of self and agency? If I accomplish something while using modafinil, is that achievement fully mine? These are not just abstract philosophical questions. They have real implications for how we regulate these substances, how we structure competitive environments like academia and the workplace, and how we understand human potential itself. The fascinating aspect of modafinil is how little we know about its long-term effects in healthy people. The clinical trials that led to its approval tested it for weeks or months, usually in narcolepsy patients. But what happens when a healthy investment banker takes 200 milligrams daily for years to handle 90-hour work weeks? That's entirely unknown territory. A massive, uncontrolled experiment on human cognition being conducted in real time. It's like test driving an experimental vehicle at high speeds without a complete understanding of its engine. The thrill of enhanced performance comes with unknowable risks. As a sleep scientist, I find that modafinil offers a unique window into understanding sleep itself. By studying how modafinil produces wakefulness, we learn more about the natural processes that regulate sleep and wakefulness. This has implications for developing treatments for various sleep disorders. Modafinil also highlights the complexity of sleep regulation. Sleep isn't controlled by a single switch, but by multiple interacting systems. The fact that modafinil can promote wakefulness without disrupting subsequent sleep architecture reveals the sophisticated orchestration of these systems. It's like studying a river by temporarily diverting part of its flow. You learn about both the natural course and the interconnected tributaries that contribute to the whole system. There's a profound paradox at the heart of modafinil research. On one hand, it represents our technological attempt to overcome a biological limit, our need for sleep. On the other hand, its very mechanism of action deepens our appreciation for the complex biology of sleep and wakefulness. This paradox reflects a broader tension in modern society. We've created environments and expectations that often conflict with our biological needs, and then developed technologies to help us adapt to these artificial conditions. But perhaps the most important lesson from sleep science is that this adaptation has limits. No matter how effective modafinil might be at promoting wakefulness or enhancing cognition, it cannot replace the fundamental restorative functions of natural sleep. Sleep is not merely the absence of wakefulness. It's an active biological process essential for brain health, immune function, metabolism, and emotional regulation. In the end, modafinil represents a remarkable scientific achievement, a compound that promotes wakefulness and potentially enhances cognition through mechanisms distinct from traditional stimulants. Its study has advanced our understanding of brain function and opened new therapeutic possibilities. At the same time, as a sleep scientist, I must emphasize that cognitive enhancement should not come at the expense of healthy sleep. The most sustainable approach to optimal brain function begins with respecting our biological need for sleep. Perhaps the most valuable insight from modafinil research is not how to replace sleep, but how to better understand and appreciate its irreplaceable role in our lives. Modafinil is like a high-performance speedboat that can temporarily navigate the waters of wakefulness with impressive efficiency. But even the most sophisticated vessel eventually needs to return to shore for maintenance and refueling. By studying the exceptions, states of enhanced wakefulness, we come to better understand the rule that sleep is fundamental to our cognitive, physical, and emotional well-being. Until we have decades of research on long-term safety, I view modafinil with a sober and reverent level of marked caution and await more definitive answers from future investigations. Thank you for joining me on this scientific journey. Let me know on social media if these kinds of episodes about such pharmacology are interesting and informative. Thanks so much for listening. No need to like or leave a rating. The most amazing thing would be for you to share this episode with a friend or alike, spreading the good word of sleep. And with that, I'll say thanks for listening and bye for now.